Oh, hello everybody. Welcome to Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra, because we are on a Wednesday. Not only are we on a Wednesday, it's my birthday today. Ooh. I've had a brilliant day actually. Tell you about that at half time. What are we reading? New book. So we are on to this one, which I like the look of: The Ghosts and Legends of Lincolnshire and the Fen Country. Uh, it looks quite good. Oh, here comes Derpy. He's decided he wants in on the act. You coming up? Oh, what are you going to do? What are we drinking tonight? Well, a two beer process tonight and a bump. We're having Tipsy Belgian Oud Brewing, Herman's beer, Gerb Oud God, Ferres V2. 7%. Oh my goodness me. Tipsy Belgian Brewing, brewed with character, served with style. www Tipsy Beer. Ingredients: water, malted barley malt, yeast, hops. Allergens include gluten shown in bold. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, 7%, which would be bad enough. But the other beer we're having tonight, which we got from Home Bargains, it's the Lovelace Brewery Blackbird Extra Stout, 6.7%. So this is pretty strong stuff. There's the Tipsy, and so Anno 1898. So there we go. There's the Tipsy. I love the designs of these cans. They are absolutely beautiful. So we haven't even read a story yet, and already we have a dead soldier. It doesn't tell you anything else about the beer on here. It doesn't say if it's a no, nothing, absolutely nothing. But dead soldier and Run VT.
Oh, it's jolly nice of you. Hello, dead soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
Indeed. We will be washing it down with the Western Gold Honey, which is absolutely incroyable. Love this stuff. Are we going to limit ourselves to a two bump tonight, Derbs? No, I think we might. Yeah, it might be a three bumper tonight. It's my birthday. I think it will be a three bumper. Coming up. You're coming up. Come on. I can't do the ghost story show with you sat down there. Here he is. He's joined us at last. So you just want a bit of attention because you've been on your own all day. So here we go. The Anchholm Valley. The Tiddymun without a name. The isolated North Lincolnshire Cars or wetlands were drained by Cornelius Vermuyden and his fellow Dutchmen in the 17th century. The Car people hated the Dutches, who were meddling with their land and taking away their living and freedom. They killed lots of drainers, using the Tiddymun without a name as their scapegoat, for they knew he would be upset when the water was drained away. And according to legend told by an old marshwoman at the end of the last century, he was. Tiddymun lived in the waterholes, and he only came out at night when the mists rose. The creature was no larger than a 3-year-old child, yet looked like a little old man with his long tangled white hair and white muzzled beard. Sounds like Yoda. He was dressed in grey and laughed like a peewit or piewipe screech, and never had a name. He was not bad like Boggarts, who were scared of him or any of the evil things which lived in the wetlands. However, although he was good to humans and protected them, people were scared when they heard his eerie laughter. When the floodwaters came, men, women, and children would stand under the first new moon and, facing the bog, called out together in sacred and quavery voices, Tiddy Mum without a name, the water's rough. The following morning, the floodwater would have vanished, for Tiddy Munn had taken it away, and they knew he would always be their friend so long as the land remained undrained. By now, the marshes were almost dry, and the water was drawn off into big dikes, so that the soppy, quivering bog was turning into firm land. Everybody said that ill times were coming, but the Dutchmen continued digging and their work progressed. Then strange things happened. The drainers started to vanish, and although search parties were ordered, they were never found. For Tiddy Munn had taken them and drowned them in the mud holes where they hadn't drawn off the water. Replacements were brought in to finish the work, and though Tiddy Munn took them one by one, the work continued, and soon people knew that the old man was cross with everybody. Children and animals became sick and died, crops failed, the porridge burnt, and everything went wrong. At first, it was impossible to believe that the little creature would be so mean. So the witches and Todd Lowrys were blamed. All evil ones were punished, but still disaster struck, and it was soon obvious that Tiddy Munn was angry with everyone. Eventually, it was agreed that he would only be appeased if some of his water was returned. People of all ages went out under the new moon and met at the dike edge, each with a pan of water in his hand. As they tipped the water out, they called in loud voices for the spell to be undone. Then they waited for a sign of recognition. After a long time, the woeful sound of whimpering babies disturbed the unnatural stillness. Mothers claimed it was their dead children begging Tiddy Munn to be kind again, and some said they felt tiny cold embraces as they waited for Tiddy Munn. Then the stillness returned, and once more the water was heard lapping at their feet and the dog barking in the farmyard. Eventually, the familiar laughter, which sounded like the piewipe screech, filled the night air. The spell was broken, and they knew that Tiddy Munn was pleased with their offering and pleased with them. The old people, men and children went home with elated spirits, and only the women had sad thoughts of their dead children drifting about in the night air. Soon everything had returned to normal, but for many years thereafter, people went to the nearest dike edge at the time of the new moon and offered water to Tiddy Munn. If anyone forgot, bad luck was with them until they went out and made their customary gift. Bum, bum, bum. Oh, these look moderately short, he said. Yeah, I'm just skipping through some of the pages. A couple of long ones, aren't they all, ladies? But no, we'll I think we can manage this. Anyway, time for a beer, I think, Derpo. So slange me var. It didn't say it was going to be quite fruity. That really is quite delicious, actually. So I have more than a feeling that you'll like this next one. Boston, a plague on adulterers. In 1585, much of East Anglia was in the grip of the plague, but due to stringent precautions, Boston remained free until August of that year, when the first of 2 outbreaks occurred. During the next 12 months, 460 burials were recorded, which amounted to almost 1/5 of the town's population. Beer burps. Oh, the beer burps at 11 minutes and 40 seconds. That's disappointing. We usually last longer than that, but I do apologise. According to popular law, it was Sarah, the new bride of Thomas Preston, who carried the blame. She was much younger than her rich merchant husband, who was apparently unable to satisfy her insatiable lust. One day, Preston had to leave Boston for business at Lynn, and having obtained the necessary papers, set sail for Norfolk, leaving his wife to sit in her bedroom writing notes to her gentlemen callers. She was startled when a handful of gravel pattered against her window pane, and upon investigation, saw a handsome man standing in the garden alongside his chestnut mare. Do I own a chestnut mare, Derp? I don't think I do. He called up that he was a friend of a friend who had begged him to call on Mrs. Preston. True to her nature, Sarah could not resist such a tempting male, and wishing to keep her clandestine affairs from her servants, lowered a rope from her window whilst the stranger tethered his horse in the stables. The adulterous couple finally parted at dusk, and it was not long before Sarah was in the grip of a raging fever. She raced into town shouting hysterically that the plague had arrived. Soon her death was followed by many others, and the dead cart became an all too familiar sight and sound as it trundled through the streets of Boston, piled high with its citizens. Eventually, the acclaimed physician Williman of Holme, near Huntingdon, was consulted, and through his prescribed practice of disinfecting the homes of the afflicted, the pestilence was halted. Mr. Preston was tied to a horse's tail and whipped twice the length and breadth of the town's boundaries in punishment for his wife's behaviour, which brought such suffering to this Lincolnshire port. Goodness me. Poor horse, though. Poor tied to his horse. Tied to his horse's tail. You happy there, Derps? You don't look happy, but I think you should be. So you're getting some quality time. So cheers, me beers. Right. Bourne and the Isle of Ely. Hereward the Saxon. Hereward is thought to have been born during the late Saxon period at Bourne Hall, which stood close to the castle earthworks. His father was possibly Leofric, Earl of Mercia, one of the most powerful of the English lords during the reign of Edward the Confessor, and his mother, Lady Godiva, famous for helping her husband's oppressed citizens of Coventry. He was a tall, long-haired, wayward youth with a fearsome temper and eyes of differing colour. At the age of 16 or 17, he was the terror of the Fen country and the leader of an equally wild band of youths. In despair, his father successfully persuaded Edward the Confessor to banish his son from the kingdom. Accompanied by his servant, Martin Lightfoot, Hereward set off on the first of many adventures recorded in a number of contemporary and later documents, which culminated in Charles Kingsley's fictitious Hereward the Wake. I think these days he'd be Hereward the Woke, but never mind. Several years after his banishment, he was shipwrecked in a violent storm and washed ashore at Flanders, where he married the wealthy and beautiful sorceress Torfrida, and acquired his magnificent mare named Swallow, who was fleet of foot and always with him. News was delivered in about 1608 news was delivered in about 1068 that the Normans were plundering his homeland. So he and Martin Lightfoot returned to England, where they learned that on the previous day the French had sacked his dead father's estate and decapitated his brother. The new Lord of Bourne retaliated by decorating the gateway of the hall with the heads of several Norman soldiers, and the following morning 50 of Leofric's best men offered their services to their young master. Within a few days, a full-scale uprising routed the invaders from South Lincolnshire, and Hereward was a hero. More and more disaffected Saxons joined the band of rebels, and in about 1069, Hereward's overlord, Abbot Brand of Peterborough, bestowed a knighthood upon Hereward at his own request. He is famous for his success in delaying the Normans capturing Ely and the abbey, which was built on an island surrounded by trackless swamps and can only be reached by a secret causeway or by boat through shallow reed beds and shifting mud banks. The city became the last enclave of freedom to which scores of the disaffected fled. The conqueror's men could not find the secret safe route, and an account of the king's assault on the Isle of Ely is given in the Magna Britannia. He caused a bridge or causeway to be made of wood, stone, and faggots of all kinds, with trees and great pieces of timber fastened underneath with cowhides. But this structure proved so insecure that the greater part of his army, in attempting to pass it, were drowned in the fens. It is thought that the causeway crossed the river Great Ouse in the area of Aldreth Highbridge. Straddling this right of way is the circular earthworks known as Belsar's Hills, thought to be the remains of the castle used by the Normans during the siege of Ely, Belsar being the general responsible for the causeway. None of the invaders reached the island, and the few survivors returned to the king's court at Brandon for the winter, followed by Hereward in disguise on his horse, Swallow. He met a potter who agreed to give him his clothes and wares, which enabled Hereward to gain access to the court and learn of the second assault planned on the Isle. This time, the Normans were not only going to build a new and improved causeway, but they were intending to install a witch in a high tower to cast out any evil Saxon influences. The new construction was fraught with setbacks due to the rebels' interference, but the task was eventually completed. The witch sat in her tower muttering her incantations, and the soldiers proceeded towards Ely. The rebels waited patiently until they were on the causeway, then set fire to the surrounding reeds. The flames soon spread to the new wooden track, killing the witch and most of the men, who were either burned to death or drowned in the marshes. The remainder were felled by the insurgents. Although the monks had plenty of food, they eventually grew siege weary and, after certain assurances, disclosed the safe crossing to the enemy. However, one of the brethren, Alwinus, the son of Orgar, warned the enraged Hereward, who was determined to wreak havoc on the traitors by setting fire to both Ely and the abbey, but was finally dissuaded by the old monk. Is he called Harry? Let's find out. The gang escaped to Northamptonshire, knowing that for a long time they had held down one of the most powerful armies of the day. After further uprisings and an open attack upon Peterborough, the result of the abbot's double dealing between Hereward and the Normans, the Saxon outlaw eventually made peace with the king. This was sometime between 1073 and 1075, and by now his wife, Torfrida, had taken holy orders at Croyland Abbey. Sadly, Hereward's troubles were not over, for when he went to court to swear homage to the crown in return for his father's estate, which had long since fallen into enemy hands, the courtiers staged a fight, which resulted in his incarceration in Bedford Castle for nearly a year. A hastily formed band of rebels managed to free him whilst he was being transferred to Rockingham Castle. But Hereward was a reformed man and insisted upon wearing his fetters as a token of his allegiance to the king, with whom he soon made peace and regained his inheritance. His daring adventures as an outlaw made good tales, and even the Normans held him in respect. The French Wake family, who inherited his castle, claimed to be his descendants, hence his erroneous sobriquet, Hereward the Wake. By Derps. Okay, ghosts and legends. So I think we'll put that down as legends. No Derp, the fire isn't on. Should I put the fire on? Do you want the fire on? I think we'll have the fire on. It has gone a bit chilly in here tonight, so goodness me. Right, we've just had some fan mail turn up. Just looking at the time. I'm just responding to viewer Jane. Some of these stories are a bit long, but what the hell. Cheers, me beers. Oh, lovely. Berg Le Marche, the Great Bell of Berg. In 1629, which is almost 4:30, the Mary Rose left Scotland bound for Plymouth with a cargo of wine. For days, the fog had blanketed the sea, but Captain Frohock reckoned his ship was close to the Lincolnshire coast. Then the weather changed to fierce wind and rain, and the sailors searched for signs of the coastline, well aware that many made a living out of wrecking. So it was with the inhabitants of Berg Le Marche, which stands on a hill some 3 miles west of Skegness. They often fired a beacon on Marsh Hill to lure ships into danger, and the night in question had all the makings for good pickings. Several people met at the Peacock Inn to discuss the possibility of lighting the fire, but it was decided that such action might be construed as a warning, and it was better to leave things to the violent storm. Being a good Christian sexton, Guymer took no part in this debate. Instead, he went to St. Peter's Belfry and gazed up at the big grandsire Bob, his conscience telling him what he should do. Whilst he was meditating, his daughter, Mary, ran to him in great excitement, exclaiming that the ship was about to come to grief and that her father should join the villagers who were setting out for the beach. Guymer begged her to consider the lives at risk, but Mary left him for her night's work, still urging him to follow. Wearily, the old man locked the belfry door and grasped the rope of Grandsire Bob, or the Great Bell of Berg, as it was to become known, realizing he had only enough strength to toll its warning for 1 hour. The assembled crowd heard its great booms thundering over the North Sea and rushed back up the hill to stop the sexton and even kill him if necessary. Captain Frohock likewise could not fail to hear its warning. As he steered his ship out of danger, he thanked God for his mercy, while the furious villagers were still trying to break down the belfry door. At last the shackles gave way, and there was old dead Guymer, his hands still grasping the bell rope, swaying backwards and forwards, ringing the great bell of Berg. The following spring, Captain Frohock returned to Berg Le Marche to thank its people for saving his life. Upon learning the true story, he bought an acre of land in Orby Field, which he named Bellstring Acre, and the rent money was used to buy a silken rope for Grandsire Bob. Then he fell in love with Mary Guymer, and they were married. Ah, What a lovely story. Oh, you warm enough down there, Derps? Yeah, we've put the fire on now. So cheers, me beers. What are we up to? 26 minutes. I think is it time for a bump? Yeah, I think it is. Slange. Bump time. This is where the show goes downhill or improves incredibly. Slange. Oh, lovely. Burwell. The Great Barn Tragedy. Under a large beech tree to the west of Burwell churchyard stands a small tombstone carved with a heart set in a halo of flames, which marks the mass grave of the 78 victims of a disastrous fire which occurred in the village in 1727. Some strolling players were passing through the village on their way to Sturbridge Fair at Cambridge. On the 8th of September, they hired a barn at Burwell, 4.5 miles northwest of Newmarket, where they performed before a large audience. The master of ceremonies kept gatecrashers away by locking the doors securely and then nailing them fast. Halfway through the performance, someone shouted, "Fire!" and there was no means of escape. The thatch barn was partially filled with straw, and in no time 78 people were killed. Few families in the village had not lost someone in the tragedy. An ostler named Richard Whitaker was accused of starting the fire. He was employed to feed the puppet master's horses and climbed into the adjoining hayloft to avoid paying his penny entrance fee, and his candle accidentally ignited the straw. Whitaker was tried at the Cambridge Assizes the following March and acquitted of having deliberately caused the fire. He was commended for being the first to raise the alarm, which enabled the actors to escape unharmed. According to the Cambridge Chronicle of the 19th of February 1774, Whitaker is said to have confessed upon his deathbed that having an antipathy to the puppet showman was the cause of his committing that diabolical action, which was attended with such dreadful consequences. Is that my attempt at a Fen country accent? I think it is. If you're from the Fen country, you have my permission to be offended, because that was absolutely shocking. What are we up to? We always come up to half time. Always come up to half time, Derps. Yeah, he's down there in front of the fire, and we've got the fire on. So coming up to half time, yeah, I think we'll bluff our way through till half time. Oh, lovely. Slange. Half time mark, Derps. Right. First of all, birthday cards, he said modestly. So I want to say a big shout to friend Reg, tell you about what we did today, who gave me this lovely birthday card. It says sending good vibes. Apart from he's crossed out good and written gay. I'm not going to read you what he said on the inside, apart from thanks for all your support. So I'll take that. Thank you, Reg. So that was lovely. We'll come to the two Reg walk today in a second. Then this is from my old friend Julia Art College. Beautiful card with birds on there. I'm just having a look. That's the thrush, house sparrow, goldfinch, robin, chaffinch, goldfinch. I'm just having a look. Can't see what the other ones are. But what a fabulous card. Love that. Thank you, Julie. That's very, very kind of you. I'm going to pin that up downstairs. And then we have this one, which has just arrived today from friend Tim down in Dorset. Haven't even opened it. So let's see what this one brings. Oh, I say. There we go. It's a nice, the Rothbury connection crossing at Crediton. Crediton's quite local. He says, wishing you a very happy birthday, a brilliant day last Thursday. Enjoy your special day. And that's from Tim and Ben, his dog. God bless you, Tim. Thank you very much. We'll pin that one downstairs as well. So, today's adventure. Oops, a daisy, nearly knocked my beer over. Today's adventure was just calls it up Facebook. So Reg and I were using up our passes on the West Somerset Railway today. So having been down there, checks notes dirt 2 weeks ago, got the beer burps again. I do apologise. So having been down there 2 weeks ago, we were back again. We were back again today. So we were determined to get a walk in because it's a Wednesday. So we started out at the start of the West Somerset Railway, which is Bishop's Lydeard, just outside Taunton. There we are on the railway bridge looking out to Bishop's Lydeard station. So we walked from Bishop's Lydeard to Crocombe Heathfield, which it should have been fairly straightforward because it was down in the book as 5 miles, 5 and a bit miles. The problem was because we were following the walk backwards and weren't following it in sequence, things got a little bit confusing at times. So we took several wrong routes. I'm just going to have some wasabi snacks. Oh, lovely. So that was one of the old houses we saw on our walk today. And there we are, walking across a field. There's me gurning to the camera. That was just one of the brilliant little streams that we came across. And that was a lamb we came across. That's the path we should have taken. We ended up taking a wrong path. We should have taken that one. So across the fields there, but never mind. We ended up on the right path. And there we are crossing yet another field. At this stage, we were both a bit tired because we've been walking for ages and we weren't quite sure if we were on the right path. But as I said to Reg, so long as we keep our shadows, as long as we keep the sun behind us and our shadows in front of us, we're heading in the right direction. And we were. So then we ended up walking past this random graveyard. Might be a family plot, actually. But that was really quite eerie. There's one just outside Cheddar, which is a bit like this. So I'm going to look up what the story is there. But yes, this was when we were finally realised we might be heading towards Crocombe Heathfield. Wild garlic, which is a reminder to my good friend Faye, we need to go foraging for wild garlic. Absolutely brilliant stuff, that. This is just one of the many rivers and fords that we came across. And again, that's another, that was the walk alongside that little river there. And finally, we walked across a bridge, and there was the railway line, which meant we must have been heading towards Bishop's Lydeard. Oh, that's a periwinkle. Must try and get some seed for that and grow that, because there is the periwinkle tea rooms on Exmoor. Brilliant flowers. I must try and grow them next year, and we'll come to flowers a bit later on in the photo presentation. And that's us heading towards Crocombe Heathfield station. Reg is saying to me, stop taking bloody photographs. I'm just like, no, I'm recording our journey here. And that was like a little brook we came across. And finally, that's like a a great big long section leading up towards Crocombe Heathfield Station. Absolutely brilliant, this. And there we have the track leading into the station, so we knew we were there. And there we are at Crocombe Heathfield. I love all these old railway advertising boards. Absolutely brilliant. And look at that. Local to Oopsie Daisy, we've got some local to me, Clevedon, just down the road. Absolutely brilliant. I sent that to friends Julia. And there is Reg sat on the platform at Crocombe Heathfield. Now, I'm just gonna break off for a second, because I'm just going to go and find something here. Bear with. Right, here we go. I'm just doing, bear with. I'm just doing some quick I'm just trying to find something. Right, okay. Right, here we go. So here is this is on the westsomersetrailway.org.uk website. Crocombe Heathfield, you might recognise from the Beatles film A Hard Day's Night. And I'm just going to stop screen and bring in another screen, because here we go. Beatles on the Branch. In March 1964, the relatively peaceful surroundings of Minehead Railway Station were shattered by the screams of hundreds of school children. Right, we'll skip ahead. We'll scroll down to the Crocombe. Let's just look up Crow. Right. So at other stations down the line, the crowds turned out despite the route of the train being kept secret. At Crocombe, the film crew halted to shoot a little scene where the Beatles run along the platform shouting to a retired army officer played by Richard Vernon. Richard Vernon, incidentally, Slarty Bartfast from the radio and television adaptation of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Hey, mister, can we have our ball back? This was put into the film as a surreal moment by Dick Lester to give the audience the nod that this movie was going to be different and not another summer holiday. So there are the Beatles. There are the Fab Four there. Let's just open in new tab. And we'll open that in a new tab. Share screen. There we go. So there are the Beatles running along Crocombe Heathfield Station, which is where viewer Reg is sat here. So there he is. Viewer Reg sat literally where the Beatles have run along that platform. Anyway, then the diesel came in. Love these old diesels. And then we were on our way to Minehead. That was the view from where we were sat of the driver's position. And there's Reg enjoying the fact that we are on a train going past the seaside. I'm going to have some more wasabi snacks. I apologise. Then when we got into Minehead, we went to the Wheelhouse Cafe, tea rooms rather, and we had some lunch there. There was my lunch. That was my birthday card from Reg, as I say. Thank you, Reg. That was my birthday card from old college friend Julie, which we've seen just now. Jubilee Gardens in Minehead. I was absolutely fascinated by how they planted their flowers there. They've also now appointed a wildlife area of wildflowers, which I wholly approve of. But I love this ornamental approach to flower planting. I'd love to do that in my garden. I don't know why I can't do that in my garden. So food for thought, people, food for thought. And then talking of food, when we got to Minehead, we split up for 90 minutes. Reg went off and did Reg stuff. I went through Jubilee Gardens and ended up at the Harbour Cafe with Butlins in the distance, and I had some velvet cake and a pot of tea. Absolutely marvellous. And there is Butlins in the distance. And that's me enjoying an ice cream. So ticking off the list today, I had cake, I had the seaside, I had an ice cream. Only thing I didn't have today was chips, but we've got another couple of days of Christmas. We've got another couple of days of birthday celebrations to shoehorn in with other people. So I think chips might be on the horizon. So that was the first walk today from Bishop's Lydeard to Crocombe Heathfield. 5.87 miles. I wanted to extend it to 6, but unfortunately the train was turning up, so we had to get on the train. Then when we got into Minehead, we ended up doing another 2 and a bit miles. So I don't know, let's just go back a bit. 5.87 plus 2, 2.8, 2.08. So pretty much today, nearly 8 miles of walking, which is why at the moment, eyes girt hungry. I am absolutely starving at the moment, despite the fact that I had that, well, let's skip along to what did I have for lunch. Looking very serious there. Yeah, somewhere on that plate is a jacket potato. I'm not being mean-spirited, but goodness me, that was almost like a little new potato that had been put in a microwave. Jacket potatoes tend to be a bit bigger. That was quite small. So, and Reg agreed with me. So I'm not being a negative ninny, but yeah. Anyway, let's have some more wasabi snacks. Now, what else do we have to share with you? Well, exciting times in my garden, because not only did I treat myself the other day to a new trail camera, which has turned up. I haven't yet set it up, but I've still got the other trail camera set up in the garden. Oh, here we go. Here is I'll bore you with this. Here is the trail camera. I bought this brand before. It's called iZeeka. Absolutely brilliant specs on them. Really quite spectacular footage, video and still image. So here it is, the iZeeka trail camera. There's all the specs on the side. Beautifully packaged, but oh my goodness me, what an incredible camera. These are my photographs, by the way. Comes with a memory card already installed, doesn't need batteries, so it a bit like a mobile phone. You just plug in the USB cable and you charge it that way. But let's go to the next video, because brace yourselves. And I do apologize for the what may be seen as the graphic nature of these images. Bear with, bear with, bear with. So I'm just trying to get the video to load. There we go. So this is my current iZeeka camera, and this was taken at 5:10 in the morning. Bear with, bear with, bear with. It's going to recycle. So there's one of our hedgehogs. So not quite daylight, but not quite nighttime. And then we have that's nighttime footage. That one we call lumpy because it seems to have quite a whether it's a growth on its abdomen, we're not quite sure. But as you can see, it's sat in the water bowl there, and then it's off down the end of the garden. I thought it was a pregnant sow, but apparently not. Then we've got that one there, sat there doing nothing. Might be because there's another hog around, so it's kind of like stopping still. That one right by the camera. There might be two in this shot, actually. I'm just trying to remember. Yeah, there we go. Two hogs. They appear to be being quite aggressive, but we'll come to that in a second. And there is one of the other ones. I think that's Lumpy. So that's Lumpy eating up the cat biscuits. And that's Lumpy again. These are still images. Two hogs in the same frame. Another hog. Two hogs. Right. That's not Lumpy. That's another one. Right. So let's get to the meat and potatoes, shall we say? Let me just go to. Gonna have to scroll up. So this behavior by the hogs, at first I thought this was aggression, that they were fighting for territory, because one will circle the other. Now, interesting about this footage here is neither of the hogs have that kind of abdomen issue, which originally I thought Lumpy might have been a female, but I'm told it might actually be a growth on their abdomen. So, sorry, I got the beer burps again. So we'll remove that, and then we'll go back to. So then we've got this footage as well, which again you can see the hog. One hog is circling the other. And again, I thought perhaps this was aggressive behavior, perhaps it was territorial behavior. Anyway, right, let's cut to the chase, shall we, which is also a brilliant Rush track from their 1993 album Counterparts. What's going on? I'm just going to try and find the right clip. Right, so what's going on there? Why are those hogs circling each other? It's because it's a mating ritual. I do apologize if this is rather graphic for you, but there they are. There is the hog there, getting some love on. Yeah, here we go. What did you do on Wednesday? Well, I tuned in to watch Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra, but instead he was showing me video footage of hedgehogs mating, and there's getting it all there. And there they are, literally going on a sex tour, apparently. And still footage and more still footage. And yeah, there we go. So let's not sugarcoat this, but that's how nature works. So if Attenborough can do it, I can do it. So I have mating hedgehogs in the garden. How exciting. So I've got the new trail camera, which I need to set up at some stage. When I finish Ghost Stories tonight, I need to go outside and put out some more hedgehog food. I need to get some more hedgehog food tomorrow as well. But given that hedgehogs are quite not endangered species, but they are in decline in this country, the fact that I have hogs in my garden getting it on, good news. I'm happy for them. Glad somebody is. So so that was it. That was today's birthday adventure with Reg. The adventures of amorous hedgehogs in the garden. There we go. Right. Last of the beer, not last of this beer tonight, but we got another can, so oh, we got some more fan mail turning up. Oh my goodness me, I am a popular lad today. All this Love Lane stuff is absolutely beautiful. And it's from Home Bargains. It's also cheap as well. Not that I'm complaining about price, but I do like a quality cheap beer, quite frankly. So we'll have some more of the Western Gold honey. So what are my plans for the next couple of days? Hopefully meeting up with more friends and for more birthday shenanigans. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'll report back on that on Friday. I'm not going to preempt it. Oh, we got some more fan mail. Let's just read the fan mail. Who's fan mailing me? Oh, hello. Bear with. And who else has messaged me? Oh yeah, there's a BBC Prom coming to BBC Proms has started. Not started. The program has been announced. Exciting times. And there is going to be a prom at the Bristol Beacon. I will say today, I have had, I sound like Rick Mail from Bottom, but I have had loads of birthday wishes from people. And quite frankly, given 3 years ago how seriously ill I was, and I was seriously ill. I mean, I was on literally the death ward, where a lot of the people that I was sharing the ward with did not make it to the end of their stay. So the fact that I got out of that and I'm still here, life has its ups and downs, but compared to me hovering between, I don't want to say life and death, that sounds dramatic, but me hovering between life and uncertainty, quite frankly, anything beyond this point, it might be annoying and it might be inconvenient, but it's not quite as dramatic as not knowing if you're going to make it through to the next day, which unfortunately some of the people who shared the ward with me did not. So I remember a couple of occasions I say to one of the nurses, what happened to so-and-so? And she'd just go, and I remember thinking at the time, bloody hell, Um, I'm in quite a serious situation here, but here we are. Right, Derp, shall we get on with the ghost stories? Yeah, because we've got hungry. We're up to 56 minutes, for goodness sake. We've overshot our half time tonight, but let's crack on. Because we've got hungry and we want some supper and some Family Guy. So Castle Carlton, Sir Hugh and the Dragon. Castle Carlton, which still retains its motte and bailey, is today a small hamlet off the A157 southeast of Louth and midway between North and South Weston, approached by an unclassified road. However, according to legend, it not only had a mare, but a dragon. In the 12th century, I just spat a bit of wasabi out on my book. In the 12th century, the countryside was plagued by this beast who captured and ate the people of Castle Carlton. It only had one eye as large as a pudding bowl and as evil as sin set in the middle of its head. Right again. It had only one eye as large as a pudding bowl and as evil as sin set in the middle of its head, and its scales were as strong as the armour which girded its small legs. However, all this did not afford total protection, for the dragon had an Achilles heel in the form of a small wart which grew on its right thigh. This was protected by a triple guard of brass, as death would surely follow the piercing of this minute spot. An increasingly desperate Sir Hugh Bard, the owner of the castle, vowed that he would neither eat nor drink until he had killed this fiend, which was terrorizing his people, and presented its head to the king. So he took up his large shield and 7-foot sword, a bit boastful, and set out for the dragon's lair. It was empty, except for a pile of bones and a heap of skulls, the beast itself being several miles from home, digesting 2 men and a child, which had been its dinner. Have you ever been to the Harvester before? Sir Hugh tracked the dragon and eventually found him basking with an engorged belly in the warm sun, pretending to be asleep. But the cunning creature's eye was ever vigilant. The dragon lay quietly but alert, waiting for its moment to strike. Sir Hugh cried to Saint Guthlac for help, promising the altar at Croyland Abbey many riches if he should win the day. Then the beast spread its massive wings and flew at Sir Hugh. The knight stood his ground with his sword at the ready. At that moment the sky became as black as a moonless night, and a mighty downpour of rain fell between himself and the creature. A voice boomed down from on high and commanded him to wait until a bright light from heaven should momentarily blind the dragon, and then to pierce its vulnerable spot. The voice was followed by a loud clap of thunder and a fork of lightning. Then, silhouetted against the darkness, stood the dragon, with its triple brass thigh guard shining in the brilliant light. Sir Hugh immediately plunged his sword into the wart, whereupon the dragon's terrifying screams could be heard from many miles away. The wounded creature staggered about in the darkness. The nighttime, not the band. The wounded creature staggered about in the darkness and finally crashed to the ground. As its life flowed from its body, the victor performed his avowed task. and decapitated the beast with one swing of his sword. With dragon blood dripping on his shoulders, Sir Hugh carried the head back to his castle, to the cheers of his people, who lined his way. As promised, many precious jewels and sweet-smelling spices were placed on the altar of St. Guthlac's Abbey at Croyland, and then the gallant knight set off to London and presented his trophy to the monarch, who dubbed him Sir Hugh Bardolph. The king granted him the right to take a horn of salt from every salt cask passing. Oh, I've got the beer burps again. The king granted him the right to take a horn of salt from every salt cask passing. One more run about that one. The king granted him the right to take a horn of salt from every salt cask. The king granted him the right to take a horn of salt from every salt cart passing through his domain, and to give permission to all sheriffs, bailiffs, and justices to arrest persons within the parish. Nor could anyone be arrested without such permission, and the mayor of Castle Carlton was required to go every year to the toll court at Louth to demand freedom from all tolls for the tenants of Sir Hugh Bardolph and his descendants forever. As for the people of Castle Carlton, they were happy to live peacefully and serve their master, who had saved them from the marauding dragon. I don't get that last bit, but I'm not going to question it. We have just gone through the hour mark. Just having a look to see how many long stories have we got. Not that many. Oh well. Now, I have reminded myself that I do need to go onto the postscriptbooks.co.uk website and see what ghost story books they've got, because I love Postscript books. I'm not being paid to say this. I genuinely got, what was it, about 15 years ago, I saw Postscript books turned up on my Facebook feed, had all these books going cheap, and I thought, well, give them a go. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I've ordered from them every year since then, so especially reference books for work. But I'm going to have, once we finish tonight, I'm going to have a look to see what ghost story books they've got. So anyway. Sorry, this is the Blackbird Extra Stout, brewed under the watchful eye of the liver birds, roasted barley, flaked oats, and a selection of dark malts are combined to create a robust dark stout with notes of coffee, rich toffee, and chocolate, finished with a lingering tannic bitterness. A special release from Love Lane. 6.7%. Like the sound of that. Cheers, my beers. We are definitely buying more of this Love Lane Brewery, Blackbird. Yeah, I think we've got to get some more of this. So, oh, bump. Charteris, Brixton's Miracle. Brixton, that's Briccstan. The honest moneylender lived at Charteris during the reign of King Henry I. One night he dreamed that he was to present himself at the local Benedictine nunnery, where a small portion of its wall remains at South Park Street. Not that South Park. Brixton experienced the dream on several occasions and eventually decided to offer himself for holy orders. His intentions were soon common knowledge and reached the ears of the evil Robert Mallard, who was at odds with everybody. He would slander Brixton's good name at the nunnery railings, accusing him of stealing from ordinary people and even the king himself in order to lend money. In his opinion, the man was only seeking God to evade the law. Sounds like reform, quite frankly. His diatribe prevented Brixton's entry to the nunnery. Instead, he was brought to trial at Huntingdon, where he repeatedly denied the charges and called upon his wife to either vouch for his honesty or condemn him to the will of the court. She replied, "Husband, besides what you have declared, I have only a few pence and 2 small rings of gold." These were presented, after which Brixton once more took the oath on the sacred relics. His wife submitted to the ordeal of hot iron, whereby she clasped a piece of red hot iron in defense of the truth. Despite this, the prisoner was found guilty and taken to London, where he was bound in chains and incarcerated for almost 5 months in a filthy dungeon where he almost starved to death. The poor, misjudged man prayed continuously for help, both to God and to Saint Benedict, whose rule he wished to follow, and he also called upon Saint Ethelreda, the founder abbess of the monastery at Ely. One night his prayers were answered. Saint Benedict and Saint Ethelreda, accompanied by her sister and successor, Saint Sexburger. I'm not kidding. She is called Saint. Can you read that? I'm just going to see if we can find that. Yeah, there we go. One night, Saint Sexburger. One night his prayers were answered. Saint Benedict and Saint Ethelreda, accompanied by her sister and successor, Saint Sexburger, appeared before him, surrounded by a bright light. When they touched his chains, they fell to the floor with a great clatter. But the noise awoke the guards, who raced. Sorry, not so much the beer hiccups as the the wasabi coughs. When they touched his chains, they fell to the ground with a great clatter. But the noise awoke the guards, who raced to the dungeon where the doors remained locked. They were amazed and furious when his fellow prisoners recounted the tale of the saintly visitation. Word was sent to Queen Matilda, who happened to be in the city at that time, telling her of the miracle. Word was sent to Queen Matilda, who happened to be in the city at that time, telling her of the miracle. Whereupon Ralph Bassett had presided over the court at Huntingdon. Let me try that again. Shocking reading. Word was sent to Queen Matilda, who happened to be in the city at the time, telling her of the miracle. Whereupon Ralph Bassett, who had presided over the court at Huntingdon, was immediately sent to the prison to conduct his own investigation. He decreed that a miracle had occurred. Brixton was a free man. And the beer burps. Oh, goodness me, that's a good beer burp. In time, he was invested in St. Ethelreda's monastery, where his broken chains were hung up as a testimony to the miracle and the clemency of Saint Benedict, Mallard, the source of all the trouble, was arrested on the charge of heresy. Sorry, Mallard, the source of all the trouble, was arrested on the charge of heresy and condemned to death. Brixton lived a long life as a monk at Ely in perpetual gratitude to the saints who had delivered him from evil. Deliver us from evil. Amen. Indeed. We are well through the hour mark. What do you reckon, Derps? I think we're going to do hour and a bit tonight, and then we're going to go downstairs and have some supper and watch some Family Guy. So cheers, my beers. Oh my goodness me, this Love Lane Brewery. I am going to get some more cans of this, because it is Gert Lush. There it is, Love Lane. Speaking personally as a Liverpool FC fan, the fact that it is the Liver Bird, and that was a sitcom from the 70s starring Nerys Hughes, and I can't remember who the other one was, but yeah, the Liver Birds. So, for the second time tonight, Dead Soldier and Run VT.
Oh, it's jolly nice of you. Hello, Dead Soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
Indeed. Right, let's get the last bits of ghost stories out tonight. Cranwell, Bayard's Leap. According to folklore, Meg, shut up Meg, was a man-eating witch who lived near Cranwell on the wild and lonely Ancaster Heath, in a cave thought to be a deserted quarry of the famous Ancaster Stone. This was located in a wood close to the junction of the A17 Newark Road and the B6403 High Dyke or Old Roman Ermine Street. Straddling the car park of the Bayard's Leap Cafe and the adjacent scrubland are two complete sets of horseshoes and one set of studs, each 60 feet apart, and representing the leap of a horse named Blind Bayard, pronounced Bayard, who played a vital role in ridding the old heath of its witch, who terrorized the countryside by raising high winds, freak storms, and floods. Meg also wreaked havoc upon people, their animals, crops, and everyone who challenged or displeased her. Soon the whole countryside lived in fear, and it is said that no weapon could wound her, and every attempt to withstand her spells had failed. At last a knight arrived who was bold enough to attempt to kill her. He had the choice of a dozen horses, which he watered at a pond near the witch's cave before undertaking his awesome task. He threw a large stone into the pool, determined to ride the first animal that raised its head as the missile splashed into the water, which was old Blind Bayard. He mounted the horse and set off in search of his prey, considering it providential that the animal had no vision and would not cower at the sight of the terrible Meg. Shut up, Meg. He called at her cave. Hello. He called at her cave with his sword raised, commanding her to face him. She replied from behind her locked door, I'll buckle me shoes and suckle me cubs, and I'll soon be with ye. Sorry, there you go. I'll buckle me shoes and suckle me cubs, and I'll soon be with ye, me laddie. And eventually she came out, not in that sense, brandishing cruel, ripping claws on her hands and feet, intending to throw herself on the man who dared to thwart her. He kicked Blind Bayard on and galloped towards the woman. Swooping down, and shearing off her left breast with his sword. Howling and cursing with pain, she dodged the second blow and sprang up, trying to unseat her assailant, but missed and ended up securely fixed to Bayard's rump with the talons of her hands and feet. Again. Howling and cursing with pain, she dodged the second blow and sprang up, trying to unseat her assailant, but missed and ended up securely fixed to Bayard's rump with the talons of her hands and feet dug deep in his flesh. The animal reared up in agony and made his famous 60 feet leaps, with Meg still attached and the knight seated firmly in his saddle. He reined Bayard in and turned round. He reined Bayard in and turning round gave the witch a third swipe with his weapon, which killed her and mortally wounded his horse. Later that day, Meg was buried under a large stone at a crossroads with a stake through her heart and her cubs alongside her. At last, people were free to live their lives in peace, and the horse's hoof prints, said to have been originally indentations in stones, were carefully preserved in celebration of that joyous occasion. Bye, Derbs. He's gone. Goodness, we were up to 1 hour, 18 minutes. We got that much of the liver beer to. I've forgotten what it's called again. Love Lane Brewery, Blackbird. Not bad. Oh, let's have a quick look to see how Leeds United are getting on tonight, because friend Reg has he's a Leeds United fan, so let's have a look. Man City top and Burnley going down as it leads. Bournemouth retake leads over Leeds. Goodness me, Manchester City top. So they have overtaken Arsenal. I mean, why the FA have still not punished Manchester City for their egregious abuse of the transfer system. Reg and I were talking about this today. It's a shocking failure of the FA to do something about it, or the Premier League. But I'm just having a quick look to see here. I think we might skip a story, do a couple of short ones, and then that'll be us for tonight. So when we do the next ghost stories, we should pick up on Crowland. Make note, JM, Crowland. But we'll jump ahead to Drisney Nook. Drisney Nook, the gibbeting of Tom Otter. Tom Otter's gibbet stood on the edge of Saxelby Moor in the 19th century, close by the B1190 or the B1190 Doddington Road, near Saxelby, known as Tom Otter's Lane. Thomas Temporal, alias Otter, was a navvy employed on the old Swanpool near Lincoln. He was 28 years old and had a wife and child living at Southwell, Notts, and was hanged at Lincoln in 1806 for the murder of a young woman, Mary Kirkham of North Hykeham, to whom he had been bigamously married for just one day. He had made Mary pregnant, and the local authorities, unaware of his marital status, forced the marriage in order that the child would not become chargeable to the parish. The ceremony took place on Sunday, the 3rd of November, 1805, which is 5 minutes past 6, in the presence of the parish constables. After the wedding, the pair made their way to Lincoln, and the next morning Mary's body was found close to the Doddington Road with a blood-stained hedge stake lying nearby. An inquest was held at Saxelby on Tuesday, the 5th of November, and the next day Otter was committed to Lincoln Castle on the charge of murder, confessed, and was executed at Lincoln on the 14th of March, 1806. It was the custom that criminals condemned to be gibbeted should be measured for their irons before execution, but he was so violent that the blacksmith was unable to perform this task. His body was brought from Lincoln and hung in the irons on a gibbet 30 feet high, erected about 100 yards from the place where the body of Mary Kirkham was found, as an example to others. The crowds came early to see the event and turned it into a festive occasion. Some years later, when the jawbones had become sufficiently bare to leave a cavity between them, a willow biter or blue titmouse built its nest in it. The discovery of 9 fledglings gave rise to the following triplet. There were 9 tongues within one head. The 10th went out to seek for bread, to feed the living within the dead. The gibbet was weakened by chipping off pieces of wood for tobacco stoppers and other mementos. The gibbet, which was weakened by chipping off pieces of wood for tobacco stoppers and other mementos, was blown down in the spring of 1850, which is 10 minutes to 7, having stood for 44 years. After lying for many years at Saxelby, the remains of the post were made into a chair, and the head, leg irons, and the hook used to gibbet Otter are now on display at Doddington Hall, which is open to the public in season. Right, goodness me, we are running out of wasabi snacks here. I think that's pretty much it tonight. Oh, sorry, I got my hands stuck in my wasabi snacks. Pardon my pun. Two bumpers tonight. Never mind. No, I'll be a 3 bumper. I've decided. I made an executive decision. It's going to be a 3 bumper tonight. Oh, lovely. Right, last for tonight. Goodness me, it's been a 90-minute tonight, but never mind. Erith, the Flat Earth Challenge. The 2 great parallel drainage channels, the Old Bedford River, which was cut in 1630, which is 4:30, and the New Bedford in 1650, which is 10 minutes to 5, start at Erith and end at Denver Sluice, where they join the Great River Ouse, which flows out into the Wash. During the reign of Queen Victoria, a flat earther who used the name Parallax, or Nigel Farage, offered a heavy wager to any person who could prove to him that the world was not flat. He was challenged by a man who conducted an experiment on the old Bedford River at Erith, it being claimed to be the longest stretch of calm water in England. 3 vessels were moored, each with their cross trees at the same level above water. Parallax and his challenger aimed a telescope from one cross tree to those of the other two. There you go. Parallax and his challenger aimed a telescope from one cross tree to those of the other two, agreeing that if the Earth was flat, they would not. There you go. Been a long day, folks. Parallax and his challenger aimed a telescope at one cross tree to those of the other two, agreeing that if the Earth was flat, they would be in line. Everyone saw they were not, except for Parallax, who eventually was forced to honour his bet. Oh, Parallax is definitely a reform voter, isn't he? He's like your prototype reform voter. You give them facts and they go, yeah, well, what are facts? I don't want to know facts. Anyway, right. So when we pick up next time, we will go from Crowland to Elm. So I'll make a note of that. So, right, last for tonight. Cheers, me beard. Oh, delicious. Derpy's wandering the windowsill there. Delicious. A great book. So, that's it for tonight. Fingers crossed. We'll be back on Friday for Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra on a Friday. Until then, it behoves me. I'm legally. What's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for, Derps? I'm legally beholden to say thank you for watching. Why not? What else are you going to do on a Wednesday than watch a confused man from Dudley with holes in his head, drink ghost stories, and read alcohol? Come on, folks, you can do better. I can't. I'm trapped in this tragic existence, but you can do better. Anyway, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see you on Friday. Until then, as ever, thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay out of trouble, and please don't have nightmares. Good night.